Axe body spray and other aerosols can have some interesting use cases, such as this guy bravely using it to ward off some would-be robbers. It's pretty flammable.
Check out this video of the massive flames. Police say the semi-truck was traveling down a highway in Belton Friday when something went wrong. The explosion was so powerful, a section of the highway has been reduced to gravel. No one was hurt in the blast, and there's no word yet on how it started. The investigation is ongoing.
Unfortunately, the cases we're going to take a look at today used Axe body spray in some not so honorable ways. These crimes range from simply assaulting people's nostrils with the foul-smelling spray, getting out of a DUI, all the way to murder and a few things in between. Without further ado, let's get into it. The first case involves 18-year-old Logan Smith and an unsuspecting male jogger in Cocoa, Florida around January 2022. The case is the most Looney Tunes thing I've ever heard of and would actually be pretty funny if it wasn't so dark. Over the course of 6 weeks, Logan sat in the shadows watching the jogger's exercise routine about 4 times per week until he memorized the exact time he started his jog as well as the streets he used during his exercise. On the day he decided to put his ridiculous plan into action, he gathered up the necessary tools for the job. A can of Axe body spray, one of those fabric belts that go onto bathrobes, a rubber mallet, and a sheet. Minutes before the jogger was set to begin his exercise, Logan hid behind a light post across a street that he knew the jogger would inevitably go down. He then placed his equipment on the ground next to him. Between himself and the equipment he brought with him, a whole bedsheet, Axe body spray, a mallet, a robe belt, it's kind of hard to imagine that he wasn't clearly visible in his hiding spot, making the whole thing even more ridiculous. When the jogger passed by, Logan put his plan into action. Armed with his Axe body spray, robe belt, and mallet, he chased after the jogger. When he got close enough, he threw the robe belt over his neck from behind and began attempting to strangle him. A struggle then ensued, and in an attempt to temporarily blind the jogger, the Axe body spray was discharged at some point, and it didn't really work. To make matters worse for Logan, the jogger was heavily trained in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Needless to say, when the fight went to the ground, it didn't take too long for Logan to be tied up like a pretzel and get his ass royally beat until 911 was called and the cops arrived.
911, what is the location of your emergency?
I'm off of, I believe, Kings Highway.
Okay, it looks like you're at Batavia Avenue. Does that sound familiar?
Actually, it does.
Okay.
The man just tried to assault me from behind, choked me out.
Okay, so male tried to choke you from the back?
Yes, I've got him detained on the ground right now. I need the cops to my location immediately.
Okay, stay on the line with me, okay? I'm going to get them out there, okay?
Please do.
Absolutely. Please stay on the line with me, though, okay? Okay, do you know who this man is?
Absolutely not.
Okay, and you have him on the ground. Does he have any weapons on him?
He tried to choke me out with what looks like a tie or a piece of rope.
Okay, and he's not fighting with you now, though, correct? He's not fighting?
Not right now,
okay.
no. I have him subdued with a grip on his throat and his hands.
Apparently, Logan got what he deserved. He got taken to the pavement and got a pretty bad beatdown by all reports. When the police arrived, Logan was quickly arrested and the jogger only sustained minor visible injuries to his neck and face from the robe belt. It's only when law enforcement spoke with Logan later on that the full details of his plan came to light, and needless to say, his plan is very disturbing. Logan's initial plan was to surprise the jogger with the Axe body spray, using it to blind him and then maybe bonk him in the head as many times as needed with the rubber mallet and or choke him with the robe belt. After which he planned to use the bed sheet to drag the unconscious body up his driveway and finally into his room to finish the job. As kind of a side note, it's hard to imagine how he planned to exactly drag a grown man's unconscious body to the sheet, up the driveway into the house without being seen by anyone driving by, walking by. It's kind of silly, especially considering how busy subdivisions typically are with people going to and from work at all hours of the day. Even more disturbing, Logan further explained to investigators that he wanted the jogger's dead body all to himself and that he would have fulfilled his sexual desires with it and that he got unlucky because the jogger was stronger than expected. Logan then went on to claim that after he was done with the jogger's body, he was going to keep it for further usage within his own closet. He also tried to pin blame on the movie Scream for inspiring his actions, but between you and me, I'm not seeing the correlation. In October of the same year, that being 2022, Logan was deemed to be incompetent for trial, but could potentially be restored to full competency over time. Prosecutors have said, due to the nature of this case, that they're committed to still going after Logan despite this setback, but no further updates have been made public since. This next one is short and silly. It's much less dark than the last one for sure. Around 2009, there was this trend going on around middle and high schools throughout America where teens would use Axe body spray's highly flammable properties for pranks and to just show off to their classmates. Typically, this involved putting the spray onto their hand or another body part and lighting it before quickly putting it out, and other similar parlor tricks. A group of teenagers wanted to take things a bit further. They were bored one day and wanted to make a makeshift giant firework. The teens, with about $10 in hand, bought 2 cans of Axe body spray and lighter fluid from a local supermarket. Once they made it outside a little ways, they took the 2 cans of Axe body spray, lighter fluid, and multiple fireworks and put them all into a bucket together. They took a step back and added the last ingredient, fire. They didn't end up getting a fireworks show exactly, and instead they just got a massive fireball which spread quicker than they ever could have imagined. After a short period of failed attempts by the teens to put out the roaring inferno, the cops showed up, which caused the teenagers to flee. The cops ended up catching the teens easily. Luckily, nobody ended up getting hurt from the fire as it was pretty quickly put out by the local fire department. The teens ended up getting around 6 months of probation and some community service. I hope you guys enjoyed that slight reprieve from anything too serious, because now we have 59-year-old Jimmy Spencer, and his story is far darker than the previous 2 and takes place around July of 2018. Jimmy was involved in a grisly triple murder in Alabama, and the details might just shock you. Jimmy Spencer is what is known as a violent offender. His crimes span over decades, starting all the way back in 1984 when he was just around 19 years old. Many of these crimes were property and violent crimes. His offenses include, but are not limited to, traffic violations, eluding police, resisting arrest, assault, menacing, illegal possession of a firearm, possession of drug paraphernalia, and burglary, among other charges. He was a repeat offender that simply doubled down on his behavior every time he was arrested. A prime example of this is when he brazenly broke into an occupied home and, even when faced with a firearm, would not back down, resulting in the homeowner having to shoot him. This offense, in addition to many others he had racked up over the years, had him slated to be given 2 life sentences. However, after serving 28 years, he was granted parole on November of 2017 and was released back into the public on January 2018. This would prove to be a huge misstep on the parole board's part and would come back to bite them in the ass later. One of the conditions of his parole was that he would have to be released to a homeless shelter in Birmingham, Alabama, where he would be required to stay for at least 6 months. Despite this, after just 3 weeks, Jimmy decided to leave and head to Guntersville, which is about an hour away. Being homeless, he received help from a local homeless program, Room in the Inn, which provides emergency temporary shelter and assistance to people without homes. With their help, he was able to get employment at a nearby poultry plant. He even began a relationship with a woman he met at the shelter, and they rented a mobile home together. With the money he earned from working, he was able to purchase a used car to make transportation easier. With the car, his job prospects widened, and he decided to leave the poultry plant to work at an auto body shop. From a quick glance, it would appear that maybe Jimmy was turning his life around, but this unfortunately didn't last. He and a friend were arrested on drug-related charges, starting a domino effect. It started with his car getting impounded, which led to him being unable to work, which led to him losing his job, which then led to him getting evicted from his mobile home. Now homeless and unemployed, he was effectively back to square one. He spent his days doing odd jobs for elderly people in the area, and his nights drinking, smoking, and sleeping on park benches or cheap motel rooms. 2 of the people he did the most work for were Martha Relaford, age 65, and Marie Martin, age 74. This garnered Jimmy a small amount of money, which he mostly spent on crystal meth. As his addiction to crystal meth amped up and the flow of money slowed to a halt, Jimmy became desperate to feed his addiction and turned to alternative methods to get quick cash. He first went to Martha Relaford's house and requested money from her. When she denied his request, he forced his way into her home anyways and beat her in the head with the flat side of a hand axe. After repeated strikes, she died from blunt force trauma. He left her body right where it fell without attempting to hide it. Jimmy then went through her belongings and grabbed approximately $600 in cash, which he then used to pay for a week of rent in a motel, crystal meth, beer, and cigarettes. Inevitably, that money ran out within only a few days and had Jimmy desperately looking for his next payday. He then remembered Marie Martin, who lived nearby Martha. He went to Marie Martin's home and knocked on her front door with the excuse that Martha Relaford mistakenly got some of Marie's mail and he was asked to bring it over to her. Little did she know that Martha's body was only a few hundred feet away across the street and had yet to be discovered by anyone. Marie opened the door and was immediately doused in the face with a huge amount of Axe body spray by Jimmy as he then forced his way into her home and shut the door. He was able to quickly tie her up with a phone cable. He then put her into a nearby bedroom. Hearing the commotion, Colton Lee, Marie's 7-year-old great-grandson, came running into the room. He too was quickly tied up and put into another bedroom. Jimmy returned to the bedroom where he had put Marie and slit her throat with a knife from her own kitchen. Wanting to leave no witnesses, he then went to the other bedroom and beat her great-grandson with a hammer around 16 times in the head. Neither of them survived the vicious attack. Jimmy then went through the house and stole $13 in cash, some food, a purse, and Marie's cell phone. Upon exiting the home, he drove off in Marie's vehicle. Marie's body was discovered by her granddaughter and reported to the police later that same day. When police arrived, they found that the home had been ransacked in a hurry and it looked as though food was still on the stovetop, showing an abrupt intrusion had happened. Marie was found with a badly cut throat, a dog leash wrapped around her neck, and her hands bound behind her back with a phone charging cable. Young Colton Lee was found lying on his back, deceased in a back bedroom with severe head trauma and a bloody hammer next to him. While investigating the Martin home, officers were approached by neighbors saying that they hadn't seen or heard from Martha Relaford in days and were worried as Martha was legally blind and battling late-stage cancer. It's important to note here that despite it only having been a few days since the Martha Relaford murder, the heat and humidity of an Alabama summer would have accelerated decomposition tremendously. When police approached Martha's front door, they smelled human decomposition almost immediately. Hundreds of insects were swarming outside of the home and in the windows. They made their way inside the house to find furniture toppled over and the home ransacked. Police found Martha's body in an advanced state of decomposition in the living room face down near a medical bed. Blood spatter littered the wall next to her, spanning 4 feet wide and 5 feet tall. Her throat had also been cut in the same manner that Marie Martin's was. In the bathroom toilet was a Camel cigarette butt, which was Jimmy's cigarette of choice. Police now knew they had a dangerous individual on the loose that had to be captured quickly before he attacked again. In less than 48 hours, police obtained video footage of Jimmy Spencer driving Marie Martin's vehicle. He had stopped to buy beer and cigarettes from a local convenience store and was caught on the CCTV cameras. Both the vehicle and Spencer were found in a Publix parking lot. Publix being a grocery store chain, I had to look that up as there are none in my area. Spencer was then brought in where he admitted his crimes to investigators with relative ease. 4 years later at the trial in November of 2022, Jimmy was charged with 7 counts of capital murder. After just 30 minutes, the jury found Jimmy Spencer guilty on all counts. With this being Alabama, he was sentenced to death. The judge then stated, "It's ordered and judged by this court that you be sentenced for death and you deserve death. If there ever was a reason for the death penalty to exist in this state, you're it." Anything you want to say to the community, Jimmy?
Yeah, I'm just sorry about what happened. I wish I could change everything. If I could go back and change everything, I would, but I can't.
Next up, we have a short one that is just plain ridiculous sounding. Dancing man disrupts traffic, sprays passerbys with rank aerosol. On July 24, 2019, police began to receive reports of a dancing man disrupting traffic, only stopping to chase down and spray people down in a nearby parking lot with a foul-smelling aerosol. When police arrived, the police asked him to move his dance party out of the street. The man refused. He then became aggressive and argumentative, leading to his eventual arrest. When he was arrested, the police found a can of Axe body spray in his pocket, linking him to the reports. He was taken to jail for disorderly conduct. Man bites store clerk, uses Axe body spray flamethrower. At 6:30 p.m. on a Saturday, 18-year-old Daquan Morrell entered a convenience store and gathered up approximately $174 in items. The problem was he was trying to use a fraudulent card. Suspecting this, the clerk confronted him. Daquan said he would just leave the items behind and leave the store. But with the store being in a bad area, it seems the worker was tired of the frequent nonsense and crime and was not having any of it on this day. He blocked Daquan's exit while calling the police. This led to a scuffle where he ended up being bitten and ended with Daquan being corralled behind the cashier's counter. In a move of desperation, Daquan grabbed a bottle of nearby Axe body spray as well as a lighter from a shelf. He unleashed the Axe body spray while holding the lighter in front of it, creating a homemade mini flamethrower. Like something straight out of Grand Theft Auto, he walked toward the shopkeeper and tried using the sweeping flames to burn him and open up an exit path to escape. Luckily, Daquan kept having issues getting his rigged flamethrower to light, and when it did, the flames didn't quite reach the clerk. The worker was able to avoid being burned, and police arrived shortly after. Daquan was arrested on scene, and the worker described the events as next level but just part of the job. Daquan was charged with assault, criminal weapons possession, menacing, and harassment. As far as his sentencing goes, this wasn't a popular case, and it looks as though not much information was released. This next case did garner a good deal of media attention due to the sheer brutality and lack of emotion by the killer. After meeting on Facebook and talking for a short while, 20-year-old Christian Ferdinand and 14-year-old Shinesha Forbes began seeing each other unbeknownst to anyone else due to Forbes being underage. The 14-year-old managed to keep the relationship a secret even from her parents. During this short time, they ended up having unprotected sex multiple times, shortly after which Shinesha claimed she was pregnant via text to Christian. Christian then said, "My N-bomb, are you serious?" and to quote, "kill it." She refused as her mother was highly religious and wouldn't approve. This enraged Christian to no end. Within the next day or so, Forbes left her parents' house and went to school. Only she didn't. Instead, she skipped school, choosing to go see Christian at his cousin's apartment while his cousin was gone to work. When she and Christian lay down on the couch, she began talking about the pregnancy repeatedly, which quickly threw Christian into a blind rage. He grabbed a nearby leather pillow and held it over her face for around 3 minutes until she stopped breathing. After smothering her, he put her body in a large suitcase and zipped it completely before putting it onto the roof of the apartment for around 2 days. After 2 days, he retrieved the suitcase and hailed a taxi for Garretson Bay, with Shinesha's body just mere feet away from the taxi driver the whole way there. Once there, he unzipped the suitcase and dragged Shinesha's body into a weedy area near the water and coated it in Axe body spray before using a Bic lighter to set the body alight. After a short while, he threw the body into the water before departing. That same day, on January 6, 2013, Shinesha's nude body washed up on Garretson Beach alongside some partially burnt clothing. Detectives noted that there had been severe damage and fatalities the past year in October of 2012 from Hurricane Sandy, but that this body was too fresh to be a fatality from that, not to mention the charred skin on large portions of the body. It didn't take long for detectives to suspect foul play. However, the death was not officially ruled a homicide until May 2nd, almost 4 months later, when the autopsy showed Forbes had died due to homicidal asphyxiation. It would only take detectives a few days to find evidence linking Ferdinand to Forbes and around or about a week to locate and arrest him. Police had found 88 text messages and 26 calls between the pair from December 26th to January 4th. Christian was located in Maine at the time of his arrest, in an area about 8 hours away from where the body was found. During subsequent interrogations and interviews, the motive was determined to be Christian not wanting to be outed as the sicko he is for getting with an underage girl, as well as not wanting a child. As it turns out, an autopsy of Shinesha's body determined that she was not pregnant at the time of death. What followed was a very emotional trial that took a toll on the friends and family of Shanisha Forbes. Her grandmother fainted at one point in the lobby due to the grief and emotion. Other family members became rightfully emotional at varying points of the trial when presented with the horrific evidence and details regarding the case. Christian insisted he was innocent and at one point was even quoted as asking if he could just have community service or something instead of jail time. That didn't happen. He was found guilty and sentenced to 29 years to life in prison in December of 2014. Calling Christian Ferdinand a monster is a true understatement. Here's hoping he never gets out.